Hello again, you're watching the Scrapline Model Railway Weathering, and this is part 2 of how to weather a locomotive. So we're going to be doing the sides, and as you can see I've already prepared this side to give you an idea of what we're looking at having as a finish. So the techniques are slightly different from what we did on the roof, which is now complete and I'm happy with the finish on that. And as you can see, with the thinners it kind of acts in a way as like a sort of staining as well, which is quite effective. Completed the tops of the nose areas, and another thing which I noticed on the other side of the loco when I was doing the roof was obviously the the whitewash sort of streaked down the side a little bit and left a residue down the bottom of there, which was a bit of a nightmare to try and get off. So I've kind of tried to blend it into the bodywork a little bit there. So if and as when you're doing the roof, just check to make sure that anything that runs down the side of the loco is cleaned off, ready for next time when you start the body sides. Okay. So the first stages of doing the sides is actually get all the rust down the sides. Now if anyone's familiar with my Facebook page would actually see a picture, I think it was the warship that I did in the first video, and it's quite brutal. So basically I pretty much paint the side of the loco in various shades of the rust colour, getting into as many places as I can with it. As always, just make sure you blend your tones up. Don't worry too much about being too neat. Just going to get a little bit just along that roof line as well. Don't like the white across there. So this is dabbed into the matte coat varnish, and then just load the brush up with mixtures of the powders. Doesn't matter too much about getting into the vents. I'm going to just get up to halfway of this because it becomes a bit hard to work with after a while. Okay, so I've cleaned my brush out and I'm going to go into thinners now. Now top tip for this is if you're going to be working on any Heljan or Bachmann models, I noticed in the past when I've done their models, thinners can actually remove a lot of the decals. So I tend to be, if I do them type of models, I tend to be really careful around the numbers and stuff. Pretty much not to paint over them, just try and leave them as clean as you can around them. But this is the thing where we've got to try and get a lot of this now off. So it's a case of keep going into the thinners, keep cleaning the brush out, and then removing as much as you can, and just creating streaked up areas. This is the same technique that I'll use on the front ends as well. So this is kind of as you repeat it all the way round. Getting into there, cleaning most of that away, and along the top. I used to do this with cotton buds at one point, but I noticed when I used to do a lot of the close-up shots of the models when I just put them on eBay, I used to pick up a lot of the fluff off the cotton buds, so I switched back to using brushes. Okay, so we're going to do the second half now. I'm not sure how much my hand got in the way of there. More concentrating on the model than checking what was on the screen. So same principle, matte coat varnish, and straight into brushing on the rust colours again. Okay, happy enough that I've got virtually enough on there. And back into the thinners again, so clean brush, and then removing most of what we put back on. Okay, so that's that stage of the model done. Now, one good tip with this is if you don't actually want to do a scrap model, this can actually be done by using your everyday grimes. So the roof, initially, you wouldn't do a faded roof in this way. What I would do if it was just an everyday loco in traffic, I would actually probably do the tones by using track grime. and then sort of the powders like this, and then the same method with all the thinners, just sort of disperse them powders into the into your base coat, and then obviously down the side, as say, track grime. And if you wanted to put a little bit of rust here and there, you could always do that bit afterwards, fine detail brushing. So next stage of this is I'm going to go into matte coat clear varnish, just slightly diluted with a bit of thinners, and I'm going to go into all the vents. No powders on this, just the varnish and the thinners. Try to get it in as neat and as tidy as you can, and just dab any areas that doesn't actually have any powders on there. Along a bit. What we'll do, just going to wait for probably about 4 to 5 minutes just for that just to dry off slightly. And I'm using now the mixture of powders, which kind of just makes up general grime. And I'm going to push those into the vents, just a light dusting over various areas around the vents, and just picking up anywhere where there's any missed bits that I didn't quite get when I did the roof. Once I've done that, I'll just switch back into a finer brush. I'm going to just do a very small amount of rust just in the vents. When I say a small amount of rust, I find it difficult to stop myself from going mad with rust. Okay, and then what we do once they're in, same principle again, back into thinners and just lock those powders in. So we straight in. Excuse the extreme close up there. Okay, so happy enough with them powders that they're setting enough. So I'm going to leave that just to dry off for a little while, so probably about 10 minutes, and then we're going to get the faded blue done next. Then that's the finishing touches of the model for the body sides. Okay, so that's had a bit of time to dry. So next stage, I've picked a very small little round head brush, which I'm going to use in just white weathering powder, and I'm just going to add a bit of fade to various areas. So the art of this is just to go lightly with it, all that lightly so nothing comes off the brush. Picking out all the sort of detail, various areas where it's prone to fade. And with a soft brush, I'm just going to flick off most of that. And switching back to a little bit of matte coat clear varnish and white powders, and I'm using an angle cut brush flat. So we're just going to create a bit of a paint using the two. Not too much, so I'll try to get the colours up and then wipe my brush out so it's virtually clean. And then what I'm going to be doing is just getting off the bottom of the model and just flicking up to try and merge the powders into the bottom of the model. few spots. Tends to add to the effect a bit. Okay, I think that looks like we got there. Might just add a little bit more faded just to the bottom, down this end a bit more. Okay, yeah, so the principle is if you don't want a scrap model, then you can use all the tones similar to what I've done along the side. Is pretty much would be the same technique that I'd do on the roof if I wasn't doing a scrap faded model. So if you like the second part of this video, stay tuned for the third part, which will show me doing all the bits underneath, all the undercarriage, and all the very fine detailing, which means that picking out all various bits of rust where, if we see there'd be sort of darker spots added on there, and just sort of any arse little bits and pieces that just ties the model all together. So stay tuned, and if you haven't subscribed already, please do, and see you again soon.